That's Dr. Desmond Okocha. He's the Dean Faculty of Communications, Bingham University. Bingham University is collaborating with us in this seminar. We're beginning a new thing where we're not just getting speakers, we're also getting institutions to collaborate, partner with us in our seminars so that they can make contributions and also introduce their students to issues that are important to them under the umbrella of the ICA. Dr. Okocha, please. It's trying to spotlight him. I don't know if it's out again.
Okay, I'm here. Thank you.
Hey, are you here?
Okay,
let me spotlight you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir. We can hear you, sir. Please go ahead. Trying to.
Okay, that's fine. So it's a great pleasure to be part of the ICA Nigeria chapter. So for this quarter seminar, Bingham University is joining as a co-host or a collaborator for this event. And many of our students, I think over 70 of them, have joined us for this discussion today on the remarkable achievements of Maxwell, especially mirroring his theory that has been recognized as one of the most cited in the last 35 years. So we are open to this conversation. We hope to see how the discourse will galvanize further conversations in terms of scholarship, application, and revolutionizing the face of communication vis-a-vis the new trends, which includes AI, global warming, political activism, and what have you. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. I noticed perhaps why I'm not able to spotlight you is that your video is not on, and I can understand the internet situation. But maybe by the time you want to make your own presentation, you'll be able to put your video on so that participants can see you, sir. Thank you, Professor Desmond Okocha, for collaborating with us and for supporting this seminar in this way. So we'll get back to the presentations. After the presentations from all of the speakers, then we will open the room for discussions and reactions from participants. The next person to speak for us will be Dr. Lei Guo, who is a professor of communication at the School of Journalism in Fudan University. She's the associate editor for digital journalism and a founding associate editor for the new international journal, Communication and Change. There's a lot about Prof that interests me. She already mentioned earlier on that she was a mentee of the late professor. So this is personal to her in different ways. We're happy to have you and would like to hear some things about him that I'm sure most other people won't tell us, but you will tell us the phenomenal scholar that he was. Thank you, and please speak now.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Let me share my screen. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Thank you again for this opportunity to speak here. Dr. Maxwell McCombs was not just a distinguished scholar, but also a great educator. So I think it's very, very important for us to gather here to talk about the legacy of his great work. First, allow me just say a few words about my connection with McCombs. I went to University of Texas at Austin for my master and a PhD degrees, and I got to meet Dr. McCombs at that time. He was my mentor, and we had been working very closely on agenda setting research. So basically, he introduced me to this world of agenda setting, and together we developed the network agenda setting model, which is the third level of agenda setting theory, which I'll discuss in a minute. And I also wanted to show you this picture that I took during one of the agenda setting conferences held at the University of Texas. At that time, I presented the first version of my network agenda setting papers. And I feel very lucky because in this picture, you can see I got the luck to be in the same picture of both founding fathers of agenda setting theory, both McCombs and Shaw, and I miss both of them. And today I wanted to talk just a little bit about the direction of future directions of agenda setting research. And I wanted to use the metaphor created by Dr. McCombs to describe the trends of agenda setting. So I think one of the legacies of Dr. McCombs is that he really liked to use metaphors to help us to understand complicated concepts. So one of the metaphors that he used is there are two trends of agenda setting research as he described. One is the centrifugal trend and one is the centripetal trend. And I will add a third one and I call it the densifying trend. And I'll explain what each means. So a centrifugal trend of agenda setting research means that we can expand the basic ideas of agenda setting to more domains and contexts. So as you know that the original agenda setting research was conducted in a context of political communication, right? So a lot of the studies were conducted during presidential elections and see how the media will affect public opinion in the context of politics. A centrifugal trend of agenda setting said that we can expand the examination of media effects to more contexts and fields. So if you consider agenda setting as a circle, then a centrifugal trend is an outward development, meaning that we can increase the scope of agenda setting research to include more different areas in our research. And in that sense, the width of the theory will be increased. So let me just give you a few examples. So you will see research has been applied to, for example, environmental communication, to science communication. And Chris and I, Chris Fargo, the other speaker, and I, we also studied the agenda setting power of fake news. And more recent research has started to look at the agenda setting impacts of, for example, social bots. And the first speaker, Dr. Baluz, talked about the agenda setting power of algorithms and so forth. So these are all, we can consider those are all the directions, developments in terms of a centrifugal trend of agenda setting. The width of the theory will be expanded. And a second trend, as Dr. McCombs called, is called a centripetal trend of agenda setting, which is to further explicate the core concepts of the theory. So again, let's use the circle metaphor, right? So it is the inward development. So we'll further explain a lot of the concepts within the theory, and in that sense, the depth of the theory will be increased. And the network agenda setting model, the one that I developed with Dr. McCombs, I think this is a good example of a centrifugal direction trend of the advancement of the theory. So let me just spend a few minutes to talk about how we can move from a traditional agenda setting theory to the network agenda setting model. So in traditional agenda setting theory, we usually assume when we think in a linear and hierarchical order, right? So if you think about the questions we ask in traditional agenda setting research, right? So what are the most important problems in a society? So we assume people will consider issues like what is the first important thing? What is the second most important thing? But according to associative network model of memory, in our brain is a network-like cognitive map where different nodes like issues and attributes are connected with many different nodes, right? So, and arguably, news media is one of the most influential factors that will affect our cognitive map. And along this line of thought, Dr. McCombs and we developed this network agenda setting model, and its basic hypothesis is that the salience of network relationships between objects and attributes can be transferred from the news media to the public's mind. So for example, let's consider gun violence as an example, right? So there are many different dimensions of news coverage to cover this particular issue. For example, people are talking about the gun policies, gun rights of the ownership, right? Public safety, the mental health of the shooters. So these are different elements when we talk about the gun violence issues. So the network agenda setting model says that, so the news media will associate these different attributes to help us to understand this issue. And that association will affect how we perceive the social reality. So that is the network agenda setting model. So as you can see that this is a different conceptualization, a movement, advancement from the original agenda setting theory, right? So the first level of agenda setting theory says the news media can determine what we think. The second level of agenda setting says that the news media can influence how we think of a particular topic. And the network agenda setting model further posits that the news media can also influence how we associate different issues and attributes to make sense of the social reality. So that is the third level of agenda setting theory. And that is a further you can see, Dr. McCombs is actually a co-author. So this is a project we actually have been working very closely just until before he passed away. Just a few months before he passed away, he still kept giving us guidance and helpful comments to help us to conceptualize this paper. So in this particular project, we wanted to use a multi-level perspective to conceptualize this network agenda setting model. So in this new model, we are not only going to look at the interactions between two networks, we will consider all kinds of networks like media networks and public networks, and we will incorporate all of them into the same system and to look at the interplay between different networks. So it's a network of networks. So we are still working on it, so I'm not going to discuss more details, but I just wanted to show you that this is probably one of the last project of Dr. McCombs, and you can also see his dedication to this theory, to the work, and he literally worked until the very later stage of his life. So that is the second trend of agenda setting, the centripetal. But in addition to the two trends Dr. McCombs described, I want to add the third trend, which I call it a densifying trend. And so basically within this new era of big data, we can add more data points to explain the media effects. So previously you can see that the width of agenda setting is increased, the depth of agenda setting is increased. And I will argue that, so if we are thinking from the data perspective, we can further increase the density of the agenda setting theory. So let me just give you a few examples. And this is another project that Chris and I work together. We are a longtime collaborator. So in this project, we are trying to see how the news media from different countries set each other's agenda, right? We wanted to see whether the news media in one country will influence the agenda of another country. And in this particular project, we collected and analyzed 53 million news articles from more than 4,000 online news sources in 67 countries. And we looked at the agenda setting relationships between different media, between different countries. And that is a showcase of the network that we visualized. And we, from there, based on the analysis of such a huge, large data set, we will be able to, map the flow of news and information on a global level. And with the advancement of new methods, and I can see we'll be able to handle more data sets using more advanced technologies and tools. So for example, just a couple of years ago, a lot of the gender setting scholars, we still relied on machine learning to annotate news content and public opinion data. And starting from last year, a lot of us have started to try large language models like ChatGPT to help us to analyze media content and public opinion data. So basically, with more data points, we will be further increase the scope of the theory to increase the density of it. So these are the three directions of agenda setting theory. And of course, we have a lot of specific directions that we can think, right? But I think these directions can help us to understand the three basic trends that agenda setting can develop in the future. And I would love to see more research working on agenda setting theory, advancing this theory in more directions. And I'll stop here, and I look forward to having the conversation with you during the Q&A session.
Thank you. Let me